money effects, sending money home just got faster. Enjoy top exchange rates, low fees, and transfers that land in under minutes. Whether it's school fees in Cameroon, hospital bills in Nigeria, or family support in Ghana, MoneyFX makes every transfer count. MoneyFX, fast money transfer when it matters most.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We'll be talking about a really important topic of public health need. It's about herbal medicinal products, and we'll focus on a lot of the aspects of pharmacology, toxicology, and safety of these products. As you all know, if you've grown up in Africa, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, when you get into buses, especially in Cameroon and Nigeria, you would see people selling herbal medicinal products everywhere. And a lot of people buy these products, but most of the time they do not know the side effects of these products. They do not know where they've been produced. They do not know how these products even got to the hands of those who are selling them. And the people selling them are not even licensed pharmacists, neither are they registered traditional doctors or whatever. So it's really daunting that we as a community, we spend a lot of money, a lot of time buying these products. And it's not only in the buses, it's everywhere. And on the streets, even they're selling them online and people are buying them. And at the end of the day, the healthcare practitioners that see the consequences of this are the physicians and also the pharmacists, because there's a lot of toxicity, cardiotoxicity, nephrotoxicity, and also renal toxicity. We're seeing a lot of patients that are going into dialysis because they've taken some of these herbs, they've taken some of these products, and it has landed them in hospitals. So today we are trying to focus not to actually remove herbal medicinal products from our society because it can never go away. Medicines, herbal medicine is part of our heritage. We were born into a community where herbal medicine has been the core. What we're trying to do today is seek ways of bringing this herbal medicinal products into the modern world, like what is happening in China and India and other places, where even in the UK, where you have a whole department within the regulatory agency that actually regulates herbal medicinal products so that they are safe, they are efficient, and also the quality of the highest standards. Our aim today is to find ways to actually bring these products into the mainstream, but in a safe way that we could actually put them in pharmacies and the pharmacists could sell them. And also that people should buy these products from registered traditional healers. As you all know, this is a public health concern, but then we've decided that we will speak about this in a more academic way. So we've brought together a really great group of people. We have 4 speakers, and these 4 speakers are experts in their fields. We've got we've got one from Cameroon, one from Canada, and one from the UK, and one from the US. So all of them are Cameroonians, and they are great at what they do. So my name is Dr. Ayuk Forma Mafomekong. I am a physician, drug toxicologist, safety pharmacologist. I am going to be your moderator today. The co-moderator is Mr. Collins. He is a physician and a researcher here in the UK. So we will start by introducing the topics that will be discussed. So Dr. Ajwa will talk about how to become a pharmacist in Cameroon and also globally, because a lot of people don't even know how to become a pharmacist in Cameroon. And then followed by that will be Prof. Prof. Asongalem is a senior lecturer at the University of Boya. He's a drug toxicologist and also a pharmacologist. He's specialized in plant herbal medicinal products. He will take us through how to formalize herbal medicinal products in Cameroon. And he has a lot of students who've joined us today. I hope that they are taking notes because I'm sure Prof will bring this in an exam. And then followed by that, we have Dr. Matilda Fiankem, who is a senior regulatory affairs specialist and also a pharmacist based in the US. She's going to take us through regulatory affairs. I believe a lot of people don't know what regulatory affairs is all about. So Dr. Matilda will guide the students and all those in the panel on what regulatory affairs is. This is how you get drugs approved, the whole process of getting it to the market. So it's going to be a really interesting topic because it's something that a lot of the pharmacy students and even medical students and nursing students should pay attention to, because that is a new way. If you don't want to go into clinical medicine, that is a pathway out of it. And then the last speaker is Dr. Beryl Nafti, a senior consultant pharmacist based in the UK. Dr. Beryl will actually end this show by taking us through the post-marketing surveillance. That is, after drugs have been approved, what happens next? When drugs get approved, they just don't, that's not the end of their life cycle. Somebody has to make sure that it's safe, the quality is of the highest standard, and also this drug is efficient, and also how to root out falsified medicines in the market. So Dr. Beryl will end this by helping us, because this is another very important branch of pharmacology and pharmacy that a lot of people don't know that it exists, but it is really, really critical. So each speaker will have 15 minutes to talk. And then after that, we will have a Q&A session. But I encourage everyone in the panel to use the Q&A session, the Q&A chat, to put in your questions that you have for the panelists. There is a regular chat. Do not put questions in the regular chat. You can just interact with people on that chat. But if you have a pertinent question, put it in the Q&A chat, please. And when you put your question in there, please, could you put the institution that you're actually affiliated with? Because we're trying to capture how many questions are coming from University of Nchang, University of Boya, and all the other institutions. And tell us where you are when you put in your questions, where you're coming from, and what institution you're affiliated with. We will also encourage people to mute themselves when they are not speaking, so that we don't have any interference here. And we just want to say that we really appreciate everyone. We'll be on time. We will have a lovely session because everyone who is here is an expert in their field. And we hope that by the time you leave this webinar, you will be very versed with what traditional medicinal products are. You'll be versed with how they get approved. You will be versed with what happens when these traditional medicinal products are in the market. And also, you will know how to become a pharmacist in Cameroon, and also know if you want to go to the rest of the world in other countries, like where Dr. Ajwa has gone. He's everywhere, licensed everywhere. How do you license yourself in almost every continent in the world? So, not to talk too much, we will start by introducing the first speaker. So the first speaker is Dr. Ajwa. He is also known as Dr. One. Dr. Ajwa is a senior consultant. He's a pharmacist. He's licensed in Europe. He's licensed in Canada. He is licensed in Cameroon. He has a wealth of knowledge. He's into public health. He's into drug safety. And also he's focused on metabolic diseases and cardiovascular diseases. Dr. One has a big follower of about 1,000 people following him online. He's not Chinese, he's Cameroonian. So he will give us a talk about how to be a pharmacist, what you need to do. And if you're going out of Cameroon as a student who has finished pharmacy school, what do you need to do in order to get a license in the countries where you're heading to? So Dr. One, you have the floor. I know you're going to give us a really good presentation. So thank you. Welcome.
Yeah, hi everyone. You are all welcome. It's a great pleasure for me to stand here in front of you and give this lecture, and also nurture those who have that aspiration of becoming a pharmacist in Cameroon, our great nation, our great country. It's kind of a two-way discussion because we also have pharmacists abroad who want to practice in the Cameroons. I will make sure I explain all these things and also answer your questions. Currently, I am an expert lecturer in the Boya University, so I will start from there and explain to you what is done there. And Boya University will serve as an example. Yes, exactly. Thank you for this slide number 1. So the title is Harmonized Program for Doctor of Pharmacy at Boya University. So let's look at that word or the adjective harmonized, meaning that all the 10 state university plus 1, because plus 1 here, I'm referring to Université de Montagne. That's the only private institution offering a similar program. Otherwise, Boya, Yaoundé, Douala, Bafoussam, all over the 10 provinces, they have this standard, and the source of information is from the ministry. So what we are doing in Boya is the same thing we are doing in Douala, the same thing we are doing in Yaoundé, and all the other provinces, all the state universities. The language might be different. Say in Douala should be French, of course. Most of the lectures are in French, but not 100% French. Whereas Boya is purely Anglo-Saxon, so we speak English in Boya. But that doesn't mean that you cannot say something in French. So that's the whole thing here. So Boya is prevalently in English and Douala, Yaoundé, prevalently in French. That's why you see that heading harmonized program. So there are actually 3 stages for you to become a licensed pharmacist in Cameroon. We'll see those 3 stages as we go ahead with the. So I've just given you a summary. So there are 2 ways here. You are coming from abroad to work as a pharmacist in Cameroon to get your license, just like you train in Cameroon to become a pharmacist. So they all boil down in the same where you get this authorization. But you need to first of all go through the academic training. That's it. So slide number 2. On the next slide, please. So a little bit of myself. I am Ajwa Nkokwo, also known as Dr. One. One is an acronym of all my names. Like I said, I'm serving as an expert lecturer in from abroad because in university of those who become pharmacists, just like those who are reading pharmacology. The students watching me now, those who did pharmacology with me 2 years ago and knows what I am saying here, knows who is speaking. I started my journey from the Cameroon. I went primary school, secondary school, and high school, got my advanced level, and then moved to Italy, where I had to undergo a process. I call it born again, in the sense that I had to start everything from scratch by learning the language, because they don't speak English, they don't speak French, they don't speak my dialect either. They speak only Italian. So you can imagine, I have to start from A, B, C, learning everything again, and then get myself into the medical school, got the PharmD, and also served as a pharmacy manager, and then go back to Cameroon and get my license. You see what I was saying at the beginning, that you can study abroad and get your license in the Cameroon. So that's a clear case. I went through the procedure and got licensed with the Board of Pharmacists in Yaoundé. So if you are listening to me and you are a pharmacist abroad and want a license in Cameroon, I am more than happy to walk you through the procedure. I tell you what I did to get my license as well. Whereas those who want to become pharmacists from high school, I'm here for that. I'm happy to train you, and I'll tell you all. So when I left now from Italy, I went to Cameroon, got my license, and then moved to Canada. Another procedure on its own. Again, it's not as if you just get the PharmD degree and walk to Canada and get a job. No way. It doesn't work that way. So you need to go through a regulatory procedure. Same thing for the United States. I had to do the board exam in Milwaukee, writing the board exam there also to get a license in the US. And then now moved to Europe, in Ireland, precisely where I was serving also as a hospital pharmacist. So there also is another procedure. So globally, I can tell you what you need to do, in which country, in which continent, and what you need exactly. I'm here for that. Now, as a pharmacist, there are also some challenges. There are ups and downs. Every career, you have ups and downs. The excitement and also the challenges. The excitement is working as a global pharmacist. You are paid well. That one for sure, because you are coming as an expert. You have a lot to offer to the company hosting you, and that's the good thing here. So that's the excitement. Challenges here, there are also many. The first one is keeping multiple licenses. It's not a joke here. It involves money. To hold a license in Cameroon, you pay yearly. There's a yearly fee you pay to keep that license. It's not something that you pay once and it remains forever. No way. It's just for 1 year. Same thing for Italy, where I'm licensed, is for 1 year. Same thing for Ireland, is also for 1 year. Same thing for Canada, is also for 1 year. So you can imagine the cost of you keeping the licenses. There are advantages why I'm keeping them. It makes it a lot more easier if one day I feel like taking my vacation to Cameroon. I'm also allowed to work as a pharmacy on vacation, which we call it vacation. It's a typical American word. You went in for vacation, but end up working for a couple of days to make some money. So that's why I kept all the licenses for vacation purpose. So that's the reason. Now, another challenges here is when it comes to practicality. From the industry, there's what we call auditing or PV inspection. That is the craziest week because it lasts for 5 days, where you find inspectors from FDA, from Health Canada. You have to stand in front of that camera and answer challenging questions, especially when they spot out what we call observations. There are 3 types of observations. You have the minor, major, and critical observations. If they pick one from your industry during inspection, you have to write CAPA. CAPA is a terrible thing. To write CAPA takes you time. So those are the challenges when you are working in the industry as a pharmacist. Otherwise, everything is fine. And the business aspect, the pharmacy, when you have a pharmacy, you have choices. You can either work in the industry, you can either be a businessman, you run your business on your own. There are some challenges when it comes to such things. So you need to be careful here. I am also to guide you how to run a pharmacy business in Canada, in Europe, and in Cameroon. I am here to do that for you. So that's what I can tell you. Then reading physician prescription, that one we all know. We've seen funny writing, cacophony from doctors that at times to interpret them is a whole challenge. There you need to also learn how to read their writings. And also therapeutics. Therapeutics is the backbone in drug dispensing, because here you need to have a good knowledge of pharmacology. And to be more precise, I say pharmacotherapy, because every day we see such things. For instance, your doctor puts you on diabetic medication like metformin, and the patient tells you, I take metformin in the morning and at bedtime my blood sugar spikes. So you as a pharmacist need to know how to handle this case. We call it chronopharmacotherapy. Chronopharmacotherapy is the backbone today in all medication right now, especially those who have high blood pressure. You hear a patient tells you, I take 1 tablet of amlodipine in the morning, and at bedtime, my blood pressure goes up. What should I do? Because of that topic which I'm saying, chronopharmacotherapy is very important. You as a pharmacist need to be able to adjust that drug following the 24-hour clock. Because some drugs have extended release, some have immediate release, so you need to know which one covers that 24-hour time clock. Otherwise, you keep your patient in limbo, and patient might likely have some complication down the road. So that is your duty. So you create what we call pharmaceutical care with the doctor as well. You tell the doctor that, look, this is my proposal with regard to this case where the blood sugar during in the morning up to midday is okay, but to 8 p.m. it spikes. So that's the importance of you having a good background in pharmacology, precisely pharmacotherapy. Now, next slide. Thank you. So now, for you to gain admission in any of the 10 universities, you need to go through an entrance. You don't just get up and walk in there and find yourself in the classroom. I've been hearing students saying that they are reading pharmacy. Again, people should not tell you lies. Be careful here. There are 10+1 universities in Cameroon that offer this program. So if somebody tells you that he's reading pharmacy anywhere, don't believe it until they are either one of these. You must write an entrance to get there. Whether you are studying in Boya, in Yaoundé, in Douala, you need an entrance to get into that program. Or you go through the private university, what we call Université de Montagne. Then that's a different story here. And the program lasts for 7 years. 7 years with 3 different parts, which you will see later on. And the way they make it here is a little bit interesting, because you go for the entrance. Let me spend more time here. The entrance could be, Douala could be your first choice and Yaoundé your second choice. Or Boya could be your first choice and Douala third. So you have 2 choices to choose, because it's not guaranteed that you choose Boya and end up in Boya. It depends on your average score for you to qualify for the first choice or second choices. And for that reason, you see so many Anglophones are studying in Douala because the admission in Boya, we can't accommodate more than a certain number. It is 20 per batch. Every year we take 20 students. So if you happen to be the 25th candidate, for sure, you go to Douala, which is your second choice. So that's, I said one more time, you have to choose two choices. Boya is your first choice and Yaoundé second choice. If you score a certain average that you don't meet the minimum required for Boya, automatically you qualified for Yaoundé as your second choice. So that's how the system operates, because we have limited number of students that we take every year. I hope that point is clear here. And then in terms of credits, the maximum credit here is 473 for you to get the Farm D title. It is not BSc or MSc, as somebody might say. So it is a B Farm D program, which is actually an intensive program for those 7 years. We mold you up like we want to build cripple. So that's the whole thing here. For tuition fee, the state takes care of that. The kind of, I'll call it a subsidized system that you pay just 50,000 and then the government takes care of it. So it's a blessing for you to put it your own, because nowhere in the world you can pay 50,000 francs to study pharmacy. Impossible. So that's what I'm saying here. So if you are within CEMAC area, that's what you pay to get yourself into the program. So 50,000 will be a tuition fee for all 7 years. Whereas those who are non-CEMAC, they pay 1 million francs as a tuition fee for those 7 years. Next slide, please. Great. So this is what I was saying. So you have the bachelor's level, you have the master's level, and then the final stage. So those are the 3 stages that you have to go through in order for you to get your pharmacy title. So the question I know someone will ask me is, can I stop after 3 years? No, you can't stop after 3 years because it doesn't make sense. You might say work in a pharmacy kind of placement or something else, but you are not allowed to treat patients. That is what we call patient-facing situation. You will not. You must go through the 7-year program in order to get that license, and then register with the board of pharmacists in Yaoundé. So those are the conditions. So you have, so that's why we see here is divided into various stages. And also there are some specialty or kind of ramification. You might want to specialize in a particular area. It's up to you. That time we will see how to channel students in the respective area. For instance, we have the industry is there. We have the hospital and academia. So it's all there for you. So we mold you. We see how you are doing and then guide you how to get to your final specialty to become a pharmacist in Cameroon. So I'm happy to take questions at the end of this talking. And yeah, so that's what I wanted to say here. This is just a summary of what we do. Not only in Boya, same thing in Yaoundé, Douala, and all other state universities. Now, next slide, please. Now, the question now will be, after my PharmD, can I move to Europe, Canada, or the United States? And I put it the other way around, vice versa. If I study PharmD in Canada, US, Europe, can I get my license in the Cameroon? The answer is yes. I have gone through the procedure, so I can tell you what is needed. So do not feel that when you have a degree in pharmacy in Boya, you are stuck. No, you can equally move to wherever you want to move to. Say Europe, I will tell you what you need. To Canada, I will tell you what you need. US, I can tell you also because I've gone through those procedures. I came all the way from Italy and then got to Cameroon and then moved to Canada and the United States. So that one is doable. So it is not getting a PharmD, you end up going to work in the pharmacy. You must not work in the pharmacy. No, there are various options. That's the beauty with a PharmD degree. You can go to business, you can do whatever you want, you can go back to academia. It's up to you. So don't feel that your job is just to stay behind the counter and count tablets. I know in Cameroon we don't count them. This is another interesting part. In Europe, we do counting, like the UK, we count the tablets, what we call pharmacoeconomy. Whereas in Italy, we don't count it. We give you boxes like in the Cameroons. Cameroon, they give you a whole box of drugs. You take home and throw the rest after using them. Italy is the same thing also. Whereas UK and Ireland, Canada, and the US, we do counting. We call pharmacoeconomy. And that's what we will implement. In Boya, we'll implement both cases when you start doing stage 5 and stage 6 and 7. The last 3 years, we'll give you all those options. Like so, when you leave Boya, you land in Europe, you know what you have to do. I know most of you will be going to the UK because the language is English, so it's easier for you to transition from Boya to the UK. So it will be the same system, just like to Canada. The way they will dispense will be the same also. Same thing for the United States. Whereas if you are going to say to Portugal or to Italy, it's a different system. So that's what I'm to tell you here. So don't be disappointed when that day comes. Remember, I am here. I will be there to answer your questions and to walk you through which ministry to contact to get the equivalent of your degree in pharmacy and what to do next. I hope this question has been answered, and feel free to ask me questions at the end of this talking. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we are almost at the end of it. That's my name. I'm currently licensed in Canada, and CDE stands for Certified Diabetes Educator. That's already a job on its own, just managing diabetes, what we call endocrinology. It is just overwhelming. The world that is getting to I will tell you in the next 10 years, there will be more than 400 million people with diabetes. Not to talk about insulin resistance. It's almost there. We are almost there even. People are moving on the street with insulin resistance. They don't even know those things. Just like the PCOS. It's a big trouble right now, especially with black women. Lots of them have PCOS. So those are all the area of specialty which I have done in Canada, and I hold a license for that. So if you want to specialize in diabetes or endocrinology, I'm here for that. So far, so good. I think I've come to the end of it, and my phone number is there, my contact, everything is there. You can get back to me. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening. Dr. Wan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adjua. That was a great presentation. Thanks a lot. We'll now move to Professor Emmanuel Asongalem. Prof is a senior lecturer at the University of Boya, and with a vast array of knowledge. Prof has been in the scientific world for a very, very long time, and he's an award-winning scientist. Prof specializes in the drug pharmacology and toxicology of plants, and he is going to tell us how plants can be turned into medicine, because I believe that's what he's been doing for a very, very long time. And also, Prof also has worked in reproductive toxicology in so many different research and clinical trials. Prof has a lot of students who are in the panel, who are part of us today. And I hope that the students are taking notes, because Prof is going to give us a master class on the pharmacognosy of herbal medicinal products. So Prof, I hand the mic over to you. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. We're having some technical issues there, trying to get Prof here. So I believe we'll give it one more try, and if Prof is not able to join us, then we'll move to the third speaker. Thank you.
With MoneyFX, sending money home just got faster. Enjoy top exchange rates, low fees, and transfers that land in under 10 minutes. Whether it's school fees in Cameroon, hospital bills in Nigeria, or family support in Ghana, MoneyFX makes every transfer count. MoneyFX, fast money transfer when it matters most.
Hello, everyone. I believe we're still having a hard time getting Prof here. Lovely. So thank you. Prof, I hand over the mic to you. Thank you.
The floor, I would like to thank you for the wonderful moderation. I would also like to thank the organizers of this webinar for inviting me. I am going to talk on the case for formalizing pharmacognosy in Cameroon, and it is going to take this format in terms of the content. So it's going to what is pharmacognosy, and then we will end with the conclusion as well as some selected references. So what is pharmacognosy? It's basically the study of medicinal drugs which are obtained from natural sources, and these include mainly plants. We also have fungi, marine organisms, as well as microorganisms. However, this pharmacognosy has some core components which they go along with it. For example, we have the ethnobotany, which deals with the traditional knowledge of those plants. We all know that for us to say this particular plant is being used for this particular purpose, we will have to contact one of the traditionalists to give us that information. And we also have the phytochemistry, which deals with the isolation and the characterization of the bioactive ingredient of these plants. We have pharmacology, which is dealing with the biological activity as well as determining the mechanism of action of the plants or the active ingredients that we obtain from these plants. Then we have the toxicology, which is taking care of the safety profile as well as the adverse effects of these plants as well. And lastly, the most important of it is the quality control, which is the standardization and authentication of what we have. And this also involves regulation. Now, what is formalization? Formalization here refers to how we can transform these medicinal plants to use it in health, to do research on it. That is the science as well as the economic growth of that formalization. And this requires that we take some very, very serious and rigorous methods in order to bring out this formalization, which is authentication, quality control, chemical analysis, as well as standardization of the medicinal substances itself. Now, with that, why formalization matters in Cameroon? When we take the public health, without formalization, we have variable doses, and that we see with the traditionalist. When they give you leaves, sometimes they give you 5, 6, and they tell you to boil, you take a glass, and so on. So at the end of the day, you really don't know the dose that you are taking. And then the stability of that drug of that plant as well, or that concoction. Then without formalization, the shelf life of those preparations are very short, usually 5 to 7 days, and there's no safety or efficacy documentation anywhere by the traditionalist. But however, if we formalize them, we shall have standardized and quality control products. We shall have stable and galenic forms, which are tablets, powders. We shall have pre-marketing dossiers, which include like the notice inside the drugs packets of drugs that we usually read. There we see some clinical data as well as some pharmacovigilance. And so, as of this moment that we are speaking, 19 improved traditional medicines have received marketing authorization in the Ministry of Health, and this shows that the path of formalization is working. Then why do formalization matters for Cameroon? Scientific advancement. With the scientific advancement of science, we create research infrastructure. We can see that in a number of labs, especially the GMP labs. We have structures which are found in Yaoundé, like the IMPM, and we have LANACOM, which is involved in quality control, and we have universities as well, which are involved in this research. Then, with the formalization, we shall have collaboration between the traditional healers, between the institutions, the research institutions, universities, as well as industries. We can also formalize it by taking the existing research that have been done and putting them in a way that will be useful to the population, especially when we improve the traditional medicine from those researches. One other way of one other important formalization is building the consumer confidence, because from the folklore-based product which we usually have with the traditional people, when it is scientifically validated, there will be trust among the consumers and the healthcare practitioners as well, and that will increase their sales and the more of their money will come in when they do sales. Then with the formalization as well, we shall be having standardization and quality products, and that will give us consistency and predictable level of active ingredient as well as reliable therapeutic effects when we take these drugs that we know. Therefore, formalization turns scattered research into coordinated drug discovery pipeline. Again, for the advanced scientific advancement, there's a model which is working very well. That model is multidisciplinary team. For any drug to come in, no matter what, it needs a multidisciplinary team, and that consists of pharmacists, medical doctors, researchers, biomedical researchers, and etc. So formalizing pharmacognosy using this model is a standard, and that gives you the reason that you see one of the products in the market here in Cameroon, which is Lapotia ovalifolia. The plant is located on the left-hand bottom side that you see there. That plant is used to treat diabetes, and it has been formulated into oral suspensions, powder sachets, tablets, capsules, and even powder dry plants of it are in the market. For the economic opportunity, when we do the formalization, there is what they call bout prospecting. This has been declared by UNDP in 2023 as a new gold rush, which means many pharmaceutical companies are coming to Africa to get into their flora in order to get the drugs which are being used for various illnesses. And so in the University of Boya, we have a center called Center for Drug Discovery. And that center is usually involved in getting molecules, and then predicting the bio activity in silico. We have 8,000 or more than 8,000 plant species, and 300 of them are used in traditional medicines. And therefore, formalization will enable us to import, to have import substitution. I can inform you that in 2023, Cameroon imported drugs and other pharmaceutical company materials at the cost of $2.9 billion, not CFA, dollars. So you can see what we are talking about. And only 5% of that came from the local industries within the country. And with the formalization as well, we will have increased export of our validated natural products. And also there will be increased benefit sharing with the communities which are involved. In terms of formalization, why it matters in Cameroon, there is a cultural preservation. Traditional medicine is not just therapy. It is an identity, an autonomy, and a heritage. We can see that with what we call Chinese medicine. We can see that with what we call Indian medicine, Ayurvedic medicine in India, that is associated with their culture. So with the formalization, we will be able to document the knowledge before it disappears. We will be able to validate the indigenous practices and counter the historical marginalization that we have within our societies. And we also recognize traditional healers as the legitimate health professionals. A study was done in which 90% of the adults supported prescription of traditional medicine in hospitals. Still, formalization, why it matters in Cameroon, there is the environmental sustainability. Here, most of our traditional doctors or the healers, they go to the bush, they harvest, but there's always nothing like replanting that plant. And therefore, it becomes unsustainable. Therefore, formalizing will help the sustainability of that plant based on scientific guidelines. It will help us to cultivate them and make nurseries, especially in the communities, and also link the awareness. There will be an awareness of the link between our wildlife conservation as well as the medicinal plants which are found in that community. Current landscape in Cameroon, we have a very rich biodiversity environment, and we also have very rich tradition. And so plant diversity, as we speak, there are more than 39 medicinal plants from 26 families which have been documented and put into the traditional pharmacopoeia in Cameroon. Enough botanical knowledge, community of Mount, there's a place in just around Konsamba there, which they call Mount Lunako. And in that mountain or around that area, that village, there are 33 plant species from 22 families which have been used to treat 28 different diseases. This has been highly documented. Traditionally, in terms of practicing traditional medicine here, it cuts across the whole country. And so it's almost a common practice in terms of preparation. When it comes to research activity, we have active scientific investigations happening in the universities as well as some scientific centers, especially University of Boya. Using Google Scholar, we found out that in 2026, where we are, there are a total of 1,420 publications, of which 1,390 are mentioning the University of Boya. It is here I wish to tell all the listeners that University of Boya was ranked 88 in the Africa as one of the best universities in Africa, and the first in Cameroon in 2025. And also in 2025, related to medicinal plants, we had a total, the whole country, we had a total of 8,820 articles, of which 405 originated from the University of Boya. Now, traditional knowledge combined with modern science shows promising pharmaceutical potential. The regulatory pathway, the government has put in place the regulatory pathway, and that is being monitored by the Ministry of Health. And so in the Ministry of Health, there's a directorate which is responsible for registering the products and giving licensing. The LANACOM, as I said earlier, is involved in quality control of the laboratories. And then we have the National Pharmacovigilance system, which is monitoring the safety of these medicinal products. And then we have the National Order of Traditional Health Practitioners, who are involved in monitoring the ethics and professional standards. Therefore, formalization makes these institutions work together effectively. A concrete vision for 2035. What we are thinking that in 2025, this country should be doing certain things in terms of formalization of the pharmacognosy. We expect the Cameroon medicinal plants to be documented more and to have a national pharmacopoeia with many other plants within them. We expect that standardized herbal products are available in pharmacy nationwide. We also expect that we will be exporting the improved traditional medical products to other countries of the world. And we are also hoping that the traditional practitioners, even though the government has already put them as part of the healthcare system, that will improve. That the intellectual property protections will be benefiting the local community in which this knowledge is coming from. And that new drugs will be discovered from Cameroonian biodiversity environment that we have. And finally, that the research centers of excellence in pharmacognosy will be available by that 2035. And so a call to action is required. And the immediate priorities are to implement the law which was passed by the parliament, establish a national pharmacognosy council to coordinate all the actions of the stakeholders, and create a national medicinal plant database which links the traditional knowledge, research, and quality standards. Also invest in laboratory infrastructure and training at universities as well as research institutions. Develop GMP guidelines and certification for herbal products in collaboration with ANOR. ANOR here is a standard agency in Cameroon. It's a national standard agency in Cameroon. And finally, launch a continuing education program for both scientists and the traditional practitioners. In conclusion, formalization of pharmacognosy is not an option. It is an imperative. An imperative in the sense that when it comes to health, without the formalization, there's variation in quality, there's safety risk, and there's short half-life of the products which are in the market. But when we formalize them, we shall have standardized, safe products with extended stability. The economy will no more be dependent on foreign countries and lost revenue. As I said earlier, we imported 2.9 billion worth of pharmaceutical products in this country in 2023. And with the formalization, we will have import substitution and export opportunities. In terms of culture, presently, we are eroding our knowledge, our traditional knowledge, and even devaluing our traditions. But with the formalization, these things will be documented, and the traditional doctors will be respected. In terms of science, presently there is fragmentation in research and limited capacity. But with coordinated discovery and institutional infrastructure, we will be able to formalize this outcome. And in terms of environment, there will be conservation through cultivation and sustainable use. These are some of the selected references that we used, and thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Prof. We've learned a lot today. Thanks a lot. I'm really happy that you're doing this great job helping to conserve this knowledge that we've got and just imparting this knowledge to the younger ones. I hope and pray that in the coming years, we will have a lot of drug discovery coming out of Cameroon, have a good standardized way of assessing these products for efficacy, safety, and quality, so that we can help save our people and also keep something and have national pride that drugs are coming from Cameroon. So thank you so much. I'm sure there are lots of questions. So we'll keep the questions for the Q&A, where we'll ask all the pertinent questions. But for now, we will move to our next speaker. This is a star speaker. She's coming all the way from the US, Dr. Matilda Fianking. She's got a whole wealth of knowledge. She is a consultant pharmacist, a PharmD in the US, and she has about 16 years of experience in pharmacy and regulatory affairs. Dr. Matilda is a star scientist because she has a background in nursing, background in pharmacy, and also in linguistics. She started her career as a linguist and then worked her way through to become the star pharmacist that she is today. She has a wealth of knowledge. She's leading a really big scientific group in the US and works in the regulatory space, so with a very, very massive wealth of knowledge. And today, Dr. Fiankem is going to tell us what regulatory affairs is all about. It is a space that most people don't know about. I work in regulatory affairs, and I share that I'm just happy that she's here. She's going to talk you through, tell you what it's all about. And then I'm sure that by the end of her talk, a lot of the pharmacy and medical students, and also those who are in the scientific world, will be, maybe they might get inspired to, in their next career or whatever, become something in the regulatory affairs world. So I will call on Dr. Fiankem to take the mic from me now and tell us everything about regulatory affairs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate, thanks for the kind introduction, and what an exciting time for me, and what a great opportunity to talk about a topic that is very dear and close to my heart. So if you can go ahead and present my slides, please, starting with the first one. Okay, thank you. So let me go to my next slide. And I want to start out by this disclaimer here that today the views I'm expressing are my views. They do not represent the views of my employer. But I will also say that I am a scientist by training. I'm a public health officer by training, but I'm a leader and a storyteller by design and a lifelong learner. So over the next 15 minutes or so, I'll cramp in everything that I'm going to tell you, and I'll tell you a story about regulation. And the way I'm thinking about this is we are going to go through and talk about why is drug regulation required, building up on what Prof has just shared. We're going to talk about who are the major players globally, because we know we live in a global world these days. Understanding the drug approval pathway, and also learning about global harmonization and how that helps to speed drug approvals. Now, if you remember nothing else, this is what I want you to take away. Each slide, each presentation, think opportunity. What is the opportunity for me in this? The ecosystem of drug approval, of pharmaceutical manufacturing pharmaceutical clinical trials, it is so vast with so many gems, so many opportunities. So as you listen to this, think about, where can I bloom? Where can I implant myself? You don't have to move anywhere. You can actually grow in this space, and you can have an opportunity in this space wherever you are. Next slide, please. Now, lots of, rather unfortunately, a lot of good things in the world come out of tragedy. But the idea, as Doc has just shared, the idea of using plants, medicinal plants for treatment is not new. For millennia, medicine came from nature. If you think about as far back as the willow bark, the bark of that tree is what is in salicylic acid or aspirin, and that is used for pain as well as for fever. And so when we're thinking modern regulation was born from tragedy. If you, from the US, for example, back in 1937, they had the sulfanilamide tragedy, where there was a solvent that was used in medications for children. And that led to deaths of many, many children. And that's when the US instituted the 1938 Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. And that act required that drugs be proven safe to be marketed. And then later on, fast forward in the 50s, there was a product called thalidomide that was used as a sedative for many patients. And over a period of years, almost close to a decade, we had the tragedy of having these children born with deformities. Their limbs, their arms, and their legs were not developed. And over time, investigating this, they found out that it was actually the drug thalidomide that was causing that particular side effect in these pregnant women who took the medication. And at that time, the U.S. Drug Administration passed another act that required that for you to market your product, you have to not only prove that it is safe, but that it is also effective for the intended use. Next slide, please. So, as Doc has shared again, it's when we think about why drug regulation, the big bucket is number one, for patient safety. It is about patient safety. The second one is to ensure that the drugs actually work, because just because it's safe and doesn't cause me harm, should I spend my money on something that doesn't work? And then also part of regulation is looking at that manufacturing quality. The products being manufactured in a safe way, where you're not endangering the patients, where you're not treating a condition but creating other problems. And lastly, which is so important, is that public trust. That trust that the medications that are out there, I trust that it has gone through rigorous testing, and there is information to prove that it is safe for my use before I put it in my body. Now, when we look at these buckets, the core mission of thinking safety, efficacy, quality, and accurate labeling, when we talk about safety, the regulatory agencies around the world, what they do is they do a thorough risk-benefit assessment to ensure that the drugs, the potential benefits of the drugs actually outweigh the risk, because we know there are risks to everything we do. There's risk in every medicine, there's side effects. So, but we want to ensure that the benefits of it outweigh the risk. And in terms of efficacy, the manufacturers actually must provide substantial evidence from controlled trials that their products actually is effective for the intended use. And then quality, when we think about manufacturing processes and the facilities where these products are manufactured, they're scrutinized to make sure that every batch of that drug that is produced is indeed consistent in identity, in strength. So if you have a capsule that says 30 milligrams of a component, you know that it is 30 milligrams of that component that you're taking. And so a lot of that is governed by good manufacturing practices. And now, Doc did allude to this about accurate labeling. So once the regulatory agents have reviewed all of this massive data that was collected from these trials, they want to provide a label that provides adequate direction to the physician, to the patients, on how to use the product. And that's why you have the package insert. And that is a wealth of information. It tells you about what were the side effects that were seen when that drug was tested. who were the patients who take this, the group of patients, were there considerations in terms of your kidney function, if you have kidney disease or if you have a heart disease, how does that translate to you? So all of that information is actually included in the product labeling. Next slide, please. Now, talking about, I'm very excited about the fact that we, in Cameroon, we're really thinking about how do we become a source. Right now, about 60% of all the active pharmaceutical ingredients in medications come from China and India. The good news is that it is a changing landscape. A few years ago, it used to be mostly from India, but right now, over 40% of the active pharmaceutical ingredients that are used for drugs come from China. So that switched, and about 20% from India, and the rest from the rest of the world. And so this is a good opportunity to really think about how do we leverage the resources, the natural resources, the expertise in terms of that active pharmaceutical ingredient as in drug manufacturing and drug approvals. It is a long journey to go from a compound that is a promising compound to a product that is marketed and sold. That journey can take anywhere from 10 to 15 years. It costs over $1 billion sometimes. So it is not for faint of heart. But so how does this process work? So starting out, we have what is called discovery and preclinical research. And that takes about 3 to 6 years. It takes a bit of time. It can be less. So scientists screen thousands of compounds to find anyone that might be a promising product to investigate to see if it can cure a disease. So they conduct extensive laboratory and animal studies to assess whether that compound, that plant, whatever it is, has those potentials and are there any specific toxicities. So after they've done this and they have a candidate, let's say this is a candidate that might help in diabetes. So this plant that we know have been used traditionally for this, can we think about how does this become approved in a treatment of conditions through the pharmaceutical industry? And so once you have that, your candidate, you go into what is called the investigational new drug. Now, before you start testing that in humans, you have to actually provide all this required documentation in a dossier to the agency. And then once you get all of that preclinical data, now you can test it. Now, there are 3 phases of testing. They have clinical trials, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. And so that goes through, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And once you have all that data in that clinical trials in humans, then you submit a new drug application to the agency where you're seeking the approval for your product. And that agency will go through this thorough review of all the data you've collected from all of these trials to assess whether is this drug safe, is it effective? And if it is approved. But the journey doesn't end there, because once it's approved, now you got that data from very controlled environments. Now it goes out into the general public. So we continue to review it to see, once it's out there, pharmacovigilance, post-marketing safety. Are we seeing anything? Because there are times that things that we discover new things about the product that were not seen during the clinical trials. So next slide, please. Now, clinical trial enterprise, it is a big enterprise, and everybody, I can almost guarantee that everyone here on this Zoom call right now potentially has a place in the clinical trial enterprise. It is it's at the heart of drug development. It is designed to answer a specific question about a drug. Can this drug treat this disease? And is it safe? And so we talked about phase 1, where it is in humans. In phase 1, we're just looking in healthy volunteers. About 20 to 100 healthy volunteers will take this compound and see, is it safe? So it's really just evaluating safety. And then it moves into phase 2, where we say, does it work in patients? So now you find the patients who have the disease you're trying to treat. And it's, again, a smaller group, of sometimes several hundred. And you're going to do targeted testing at this point, that you gather that preliminary data. And then based on that data, you can now build a larger clinical trial in the phase 3, where you're going to have anywhere from 300 to 3,000 volunteers who have the disease, and you test it. And so you're confirming it is effective and it is safe. And so the next slide here, There are clinical trials everywhere in the world at every given time. And so in Cameroon, I just put this, if you go to clinicaltrials.gov, you will see clinical trials. You'll be able to search and find which clinical trials are currently ongoing in Cameroon. And are they active? Are they recruiting participants? What are they testing? So you can get a sense of what are the trials that are currently going on? What are some of the diseases that are we're looking for treatments from? I would say that the world is really global. So if you move to the next slide, please. We live in a global world. And here I just put some of the regulatory agencies in the world that review and approve drugs for the countries. And so this is a list of them. In Cameroon, we heard is the Directorate of Pharmacy and Medicines and Laboratories, and that's in Cameroon. In the US, it's Food and Drug Administration. Now, the key thing about this slide is that I wanted to highlight the last one, which is the African Medicines Agency. This is a newer agency, and we're going to talk more about it. But I can tell you that most countries do have a regulatory body that oversees drug approvals in that country. Now, when we talk about the maze of global regulation and the need for harmonization, modern drug development is a global, interconnected effort. You can have a tablet in your house right now where the API, the active pharmaceutical ingredient in that, is from China. That drug was tested in the United States. It was manufactured in Germany, and it was shipped to and sold to you in Cameroon. So it is a global entity. Very few drugs are ever developed only to be marketed in one particular place. And that is why there is such a need for harmonization. Why reinvent the wheel? So harmonization is the opportunity for companies to leverage what other nations to leverage what other nations are doing, where there is a unique standard, so we can harmonize our standards. So the International Council for Harmonization brings together all of these global regulator authorities around the world and the pharmaceutical industry to come up with unified guidelines, to come up with technical, clinical standards that they can all agree and develop their practices around that. So, for example, the good clinical practice. So when we come up with these international ethical and scientific standards, where FDA in the United States can use clinical trial data from China, can use clinical trial data that GSK, for example, conducts in Africa, in Cameroon. And so we're not having to reinvent the wheel. We have a standard dossier format, so where and also standardized language for communication, so that each regulatory body does not have to do the same thing that everyone is doing. We can leverage what each other is doing based on an accepted and agreed upon regulatory standard for drug approvals, for clinical research. So when we talk about, and I'm going to focus and talk a little bit about African Medicines Agency. So this agency was ratified in 2019, and it became effective in 2021. And the mission of the AMA is to ensure safe, effective, and high-quality medicines across Africa. The headquarters is in Kigali, in Rwanda, and it's built on harmonization from prior agencies. It is open to all African Union countries, and they have to ratify this treaty. Currently, I believe that 31 of the 55 AU members have ratified that. And the key role of the AMA is that it coordinates and strengthens national regulatory systems. It does not replace them. I want you to understand that it does not. And so what it does, the objective is really let us harmonize, let us collaborate, and let us maintain safety. And so, and this is done across the drug regulatory process. It matters because it reduces the fragmented regulation systems from, if you think about Africa, if you have 50 agencies and every agency doing their own thing. Meanwhile, we could leverage those standards where if an agency in Ghana, for example, or in the UK has already reviewed some clinical trial data, has reviewed or inspected a manufacturing plant in the UK, for example, that information can be leveraged by the Cameroon agency when they review, where they don't necessarily now have to send somebody else to that particular facility to go again and do the inspections. We can leverage each other's experiences and data and regulatory requirements in order to expedite and actually make it economically viable, for not only for the countries, but also for the pharmaceutical companies, because the more we can reduce the cost of bringing new drugs to market, the better for everybody, including the consumers. Next slide, please. So when we think about how AMA and the national regulation in Cameroon works, is that Cameroon, first of all, is a full member. I think they were the 13th, and they were the ones that hit the critical mass to get this going. So they have a special place in AMA. However, their national authority, the DPML in Cameroon, remains the final approving body. And that AMA's role, again, is just to support and coordinate, and they share a regulatory system. So in Cameroon, the Cameroon authority can rely on some of the approvals from trusted bodies like FDA, EMA, or WHO, and avoid duplicating processes for having full reviews. It is not automatic, but again, it avoids that full review of duplicating everything else. And also they have joint reviews where different nations, they can have a multi-country assessments rather than just individual ones. And again, it harmonizes, for example, how you submit your dossiers. It's very difficult for a pharmaceutical company if Cameroon has a different format for me to submit my dossiers, and the United Kingdom has a different one, and the USA has a different one, China. Meanwhile, if we have this accepted common dossier format, one company can actually format their dossier for all the submissions in the same format without having to redo different ones for different countries. So this is a key slide for me. When we think about drug development and clinical trials and the opportunities that come for it, I have some of the professions here listed on this slide, and think about how can I, as a physician, as a nurse, as a pharmacist, or other health professional, take part in this ecosystem. You can be a principal investigator. There are clinical trials everywhere, as I said earlier, even in Cameroon. You can participate as a clinical trial investigator, as a sub-investigator. You can be a member of an institutional review board or an ethics committee, because every time there's a clinical trial, there is an ethics board, there is an IRB that has to make sure that we're protecting the trial protocols for the safety of the patients. So these are opportunities. When companies that conduct clinical trials, they have to move personnel sometimes to different regions to oversee these functions. So this is an opportunity for you to think about, what are these trials? What are the opportunities? What are the companies, the pharmaceutical companies that are doing research right now in Cameroon? And how can I liaise with them? And how can I see what opportunities there are for me? As a nurse, you can be a clinical research nurse, a clinical research coordinator. You can be a patient advocate. Again, everywhere where there's a clinical trial, these positions need to be filled. As a pharmacist, of course, you can be a clinical trial pharmacist. You can be part of research and development. And I am so excited about what I see happening at the University of Boya. And that opportunity for pharmacists looking to move and say, how can I be a part of this? You can be a clinical research associate. Also, clinical trials require statisticians. They require chemists and pharmacologists. They require microbiologists. Again, so many opportunities. And then I am almost at the end, but let me tell you about regulatory affairs. Next slide, please. Okay, so regulatory affairs and post-marketing. I have been a regulatory affairs person for the last 16 years, and I've worked in this field, and I hold it very dear to my heart because it is so important. It is so important to maintain the safety of the people, of the public. And physicians, nurses, pharmacists, and other professionals can be part of this, not only during the drug approval, but also post-marketing. You can think about being a regulatory agency medical officer. Right now with AMA, I am sure there are so many opportunities for all of these professionals to kind of be part of that. And I'm sure even with the Cameroon agency, there are opportunities that people, if you don't know what you don't know, it is not helpful. So again, you can be part of advisory committees, post-marketing surveillance, pharmacovigilance nurses, patient safety specialists, health policy advisors, and just so many. And I hope that folks would take advantage of this. Now, physicians also know how many times we have pharmaceutical companies sending their medical science liaisons who go from office to office giving you samples of their products. And so that is a pathway for a lot of pharmacists. Like, I can be a medical science liaison, I can be a drug information specialist, where these companies that want to bring their new drugs, how do I get the treating physicians who are very busy, they don't have time to go scouring the internet every day, but how do I introduce them to these new medical products that have been approved in different agencies around the globe? And so again, you can be part of that. You can be part of that pharmaceutical company where you have the opportunity to share the information about new products with clinicians, with treating specialists. And of course, ethicists and bioethicists, health economics. Health economics is the big one because it costs so much to make drugs. And everybody's always looking about how do we become economically viable? Because, the cost is always, it ends up on the consumer, you and I, whoever's taking the drug. That's how the cost impacts. So again, we want people who can do cost-effective analysis. So what are the key takeaways here is that you can be a part of this anywhere in the world. You do not need to move. You can move. It also might give you opportunities to move around, because if you work with one company in Cameroon, that pharmaceutical company may have other clinical research around the globe. And again, it's an opportunity. But at the end of the day, I want you all to remember that regulation protects patients. And many global agencies review medicines. They work collaboratively to harmonize, to improve efficiency. And that collaboration is key because it helps speed patient access. And with that, I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to the Q&A session.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fiankim. You've touched a topic that touches my heart so dearly, because we are in a similar field, even though I'm a medical doctor and you're a pharmacist, but then regulatory cuts across everyone. So yeah, this is a great opportunity. And one thing that I want every student here to take back is safety, efficacy, and quality. Every time you pick up a drug, ask yourself, safety, efficacy, and quality. That is what the regulatory agencies look at. And after that, they go into pharmacovigilance. So now we're going to dive into pharmacovigilance with Dr. Nafti. So our next speaker is Dr. Nafti. She is a UK-based senior consultant in pharmacy. She has many, many years of experience, and I believe she's touched every aspect of pharmacy, from community pharmacy to clinical pharmacy, and now is mental health. And Dr. Nafti has a vast array, not only from clinical work, but also in academia, and she's very much active in her community. She does a lot of charity work in Africa. She teaches in so many other universities around the world. And today, Dr. Nafti will give us a little bit of a scope on pharmacovigilance. This is a very, very important topic, because when you've had this drug approved, how do you keep this drug in the market? It is very important to continuously watch out for the safety, efficacy, and quality of this drug. So this is what Dr. Nafti is going to tell us, how this process works and how we can implement this into the herbal medicinal space. So Dr. Nafti, I will hand over the mic to you to give us all the information that you've brought for us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Former, and thanks for that kind introduction. My background is actually pharmaceutical technology, where I studied how to make medicines. And when I started, my view was what we have been talking about, formalizing medicines in Cameroon, using our own putative drug medicines to produce medicines that we can use in Cameroon. At the time, we had Plantecam, which was in Boya, and I thought that was a perfect opportunity. I have moved on, and I'm working in mental health, and those in studying in Cameroon that would like to explore how a pharmacist can be a specialist in mental health are perfectly welcome to contact me on how to do that. Now, when we talk about pharmacovigilance after drugs have been put in the market, we are talking about, obviously the Romans and the Greeks got involved in naming this, which is just really watching what happens to the drugs when you put them in the market. And it is a full life cycle thing. It's something that continues from what Dr. Fienken spoke about in the regulation of medicines during clinical trials, and then moving on to what happens to it through early development and through to post-marketing, which the market authorization holders, the big pharma, what they legally have to do in order to keep those drugs in the market. It covers all your medicines, everything that you need to keep your health going, vaccines, biologics, and the complementary medicines that we've spoken about. Now, next we talk about why it is necessary. Whilst my colleagues have spoken about the journey of the medicines, how it is tested and how it is used during the time of testing before it is thought to be safe. Well, those clinical trials are the gold standard for providing information about how the medicines work and whether it is safe. However, they are actually quite small trials. When you think about medicines being tested in America amongst American citizens, or in the UK amongst UK citizens, and then being used in Cameroon, then you realize the limitations of clinical trials. The populations are small, and if you think about drug side effects that would affect perhaps people in 1 in 10,000 people, you probably need to test at least 5,000 people in order to detect a 1 in 10,000 drug interaction. So you are not going to be able to test up to 5,000 people during clinical trials. During clinical trials, you have perhaps people, pregnant women, children, elderly people that are excluded from those trials. They are done under controlled conditions, and they have strict eligibility criteria. So it is not tested in all the regular people that we see every day. People that use loads of medications in addition to the medication that is being tested are excluded. And then there's publication bias. If you're thinking about a company that has spent $1 billion developing a medication, they are only going to generally publish data that is going to favor their product. And it has been proven that several pharmaceutical companies have published data and not published some of the more negative data, as we'll see later on when we'll see information on how post-marketing pharmacovigilance has helped the general population stay safe, and how some of the outcomes have led to some medication being pulled out of the market. Okay. How is it monitored in the UK? In the UK, we have the Medicines and Health Product Regulatory Authority, which is run under the DOH, the Department of Health and Social Care. And what they do is that they look at the detection of adverse drug interactions, which are reported through the yellow card system, and then they assess the reports that are being sent through that system, and then they look at how some of the effects that have been reported as occurring as a result of those medications, how they can be prevented, and then they disseminate that through healthcare professionals working within the NHS and other private care organizations. So it becomes the responsibility of everyone working within healthcare, and indeed patients that are taking those medications, to report any side effects that they are experiencing as a result of taking their medication. Marketing authorization holders, like your drug companies, have a responsibility, and it's a legal responsibility, to produce periodic safety update reports. And you can see that on the screen. Some of the medication they have to do every 6 months, then every 12 months, and then every 3 years. And the possible outcomes of that is the medication can be withdrawn from the market, or you can have healthcare professionals being given information that they need to pass on to their users and to the general public. Okay. I thought that I should talk a little bit more about the Yellow Card scheme. The Yellow Card scheme is operated in the UK, and it started really after the thalidomide tragedy that Dr. Matilda Fienken spoke about. This drug was developed for use by pregnant women for morning sickness and as a sedative, and it ended up leading to children being born without limbs and without hearts, some of them with neurodevelopmental problems. And so in 1964, the Yellow Card scheme was developed, and since then, I think at least 1 million adverse drug reactions to medications that are in the market have been reported. So you report suspected adverse drug reactions to medication devices that are not working properly, defective medicines, and recently they've added e-cigarettes that are widely used among the young adults within the UK population, which was thought to be quite harmless because they were meant to be replacing cigarettes that were destructive to lungs. However, they've been found to also have their own problems. So e-cigarette side effects are also now meant to be reported by the Yellow Card scheme. Okay. Then we talk about a little bit more about other ways of monitoring medications that are in the market. The Black Triangle scheme is used in the UK for medications that are still subject to very close scrutiny for safety, even when they are already in the market. A typical example of this is the COVID-19 vaccines that are all still, most of them are still subject to the Black Triangle scheme because they still require a very close safety monitoring. And every healthcare professional working with a medication that has a Black Triangle is required to report any side effect, no matter whether it's a common one or it's a very rare one. And medications stay in this scheme and are reviewed every 5 years. However, if I know I don't want to trigger anyone that has a problem with vaccines or COVID vaccine in particular, but if a medication has a Black Triangle, it does not mean that it is unsafe. It just means that regulators are under legal requirements to monitor it closely and collect more data before they can say that the medication is completely safe for use. Okay. Now, what happens when all this data is submitted via the Yellow Card scheme? First, the data entry happens, and every single one of it goes into the MHRA database. We talked about the MHRA in the UK, and then it is sort of synthesized and then reviewed by experts, and then they decide whether they are going to take action or not. If it is confirmed that the medication has a problem whilst being marketed to people, then a decision is made. In many cases, the medication is not actually withdrawn. Within the UK, we have a system where every organization has a medicine safety officer, which is a role that mostly pharmacists play. Nurses can play this role, but usually it's pharmacists. And then the medicine safety officers, their role is to disseminate the information that the Department of Health and Social Care has sent through the MHRA, and then that information goes through all the departments, community pharmacists, everybody has that. And if you have that medication on your shelf, all the batch numbers and the expiry date of that specific medication is disseminated and it is taken off the shelf. That is how it is monitored in the UK. I'm not sure how it happens in Cameroon, but I know that with the globalization of and AI tools, we can do it in Cameroon because it is easy for everyone to connect and know a medication that has been withdrawn from the market or it's been subject to new safety requirements. And then the WHO runs its VG base. All of this information is entered into that database so that it is shared globally. Okay. Historical examples of what post-marketing pharmacovigilance has helped with. We've spoken about thalidomide, but here I wanted to talk about something that is close to my heart, which is an antidepressant called paroxetine that was marketed by GlaxoSmithKline years and years ago. And even though we are all required, or at least marketing authorization holders like Big Pharma, they are meant to do clinical trials and then report everything that they discover in the clinical trials. However, this company chose to withhold information about paroxetine, which happened to cause increased suicidal ideation in children and young people, and they were self-harming, but they did not disclose that information. When they were discovered, they were charged and fined billions of dollars. However, this medication has not been withdrawn from the market. The MHRA in the UK has placed restrictions for use in children and young people, even though it is still prescribed for a lot of children with post-traumatic stress disorder. It is restricted, and under 18s are not meant to use it. In Cameroon, we have our fluoroquinolone antibiotics like ciprofloxacin that is used, that was discovered to have neurological damage, and that was years after it was being used. Now, in Cameroon, does anybody actually think about that when they're giving the medication to people? When they are, I know that when I worked in Cameroon, fluoroquinolone antibiotics were used quite commonly. I'm not sure if it's still used quite the same right now. Okay. Now, who is responsible for post-marketing pharmacovigilance in Cameroon? Dr. Fienke mentioned the DPML, the Direction de la Pharmacie, du Médicament et de Laboratoire, and there's LANACOM that is responsible for quality control of the market, in the market, medications that are already being sold in Cameroon. And then there's SENAM that is responsible for regulating medication supply in Cameroon. I actually went on the website of the different agencies, and they work quite well actually. You have the ability to click a form on the GPML website and report side effects to medication that you're taking in Cameroon. What happens to that data, I am not sure. I am hoping that with pharmacy schools now all over Cameroon, we will have pharmacists that will be trained to work and disseminate the data that is coming from those websites, and that the website will be made easy for use by patients as well as by healthcare professionals. Cameroon is now a member of the WHO program for international drug monitoring. So the information that goes on the DPML website also then goes onto the WHO database, which is disseminated to other countries in the manner that Dr. Fienke described in her presentation. However, in Cameroon, there are challenges to the pharmacovigilance system. The main challenge is infrastructure. In a study that was done in 2022, a few health programs were assessed in Cameroon, and one of the main things was that they did not have any dedicated office space. So if we are thinking of formalizing our herbal medicines in Cameroon, we have to think about some of these challenges. For example, we are thinking about centers that are supposed to be looking after pharmacovigilance, but they do not have computers, they do not have data analysis software, and they do not have any budget to operate the system. So there is a need to lobby for budgets to look at these systems to make medications safe that are in use in Cameroon. The reporting of adverse drug reactions in Cameroon is also low, but it is not limited to Cameroon. Adverse drug reaction reporting is low across the world, but particularly in Cameroon, where documentation is limited by data storage facilities. Then there's poor knowledge and attitude and practice to post-marketing pharmacovigilance. In the study I spoke about, they realized that not a single person that was talking about surveillance in Cameroon had actually had any formal training at the time in 2022 when the study was done in pharmacovigilance at all. There were personnel shortages. Obviously, if you're not training anybody to do the work, then you're not going to have anyone doing that work. One of the key problems in Cameroon and across Africa is the fake medicines, particularly coming from countries like India. I know that we have a lot of colleagues that come from India and they have vehemently refused this, but this has been documented, particularly in some of the medicines that are now circulating, like your tramadol, in some cases it was found that some governments were colluding with some pharmaceutical industries to produce substandard meds in order to save costs. So these are some of the things that we need to look at when we are thinking about formalizing herbal medicines in Cameroon. Now, herbal medicines and pharmacognosy that we've spoken about before fall under complementary medicines in the UK, and there are different aspects of it. In the UK you have those that have been offered a product license, then you have those like vitamins that are registered as food supplements, and you have traditional medicines, much the same like what we have in Cameroon, that have had unofficial or informal proof of efficacy for at least 30 years. Then you have homeopathic products that are apparently a fan favorite of the King of England, and it's just the concept that if you give a little bit of what you already have in very minuscule amounts, then you can use that little bit to treat the condition that you're suffering from. Okay. How are herbal medicines kept safe in the UK? They have a 3-tiered system where they have a recording of medications that are under marketing authorization, much like your conventional medicines. Then you have the traditional herbal registration. Those medicines must have the THR kite mark in the UK. Those medicines have been assessed for safety, they've been assessed for quality, but they do not have any proven efficacy. So if you look at a bottle of such a medicine, then you will not have any claims of efficacy. You probably have something like may help you. For example, you have turmeric that is often used as an anti-inflammatory. It's been formulated into tablets and being used in the UK, but it has no proven efficacy. However, there's a lot of in-use testimonies to its job as an anti-inflammatory. Those who fall under traditional herbal registration regulation. Then you have the unlicensed herbal products, which is what a lot of the medication that we've mentioned in Cameroon fall under. Okay, but why are complementary medicines challenging to regulate? We are talking about formalizing pharmacognosy in Cameroon, formalizing the medicines we use as traditional medicines, but it is very difficult to formalize those, and so it needs to be a structured, intentional process, because those medications are of variable qualities. You find, for example, that we use ginger for a lot of medicinal purposes, but ginger that is produced in the UK or grown in Cameroon, grown in China, has different qualities. So how are you going to standardize the quality of those products? You need to have a collaborative effort that shows some commonalities between all those products and is recorded. A lot of the medication is purchased by patients that do not necessarily tell their healthcare professionals that they are purchasing that medicine. So it is difficult to tell what is happening to the patient as a result of the medication that they are purchasing as herbal medicine and what is happening to them as a result of the medication that is prescribed by their own doctors, then some of this medication interact with the medication that you're already taking formally for your condition. So if you go and buy beetroot products, for example, that are known to help lower your blood pressure, but you're already taking your own blood pressure medicines, you're not telling your healthcare professional that you are taking beetroot, for example. There's no way that anyone is going to know that the effect that you're having is as a result of the beetroot rather than as a result of the medicines that you're being prescribed formally for your high blood pressure. So it's very difficult for complementary medicines to be regulated because patients are not necessarily reporting the extent to which they are using those medications to treat their conditions. So next, in Cameroon, it is even more challenging to regulate those medicines. Whilst we have had mention of, quite thankfully, some of the effort that has been made to register traditional health practitioners in Cameroon and to start a process of licensing the use of those medications, the vast informal market still exists. I still remember taking a bus in Cameroon to go from Douala to Bamenda, and throughout the process there was someone pulling some magic product out of their bag to sell, and you would have one bottle of medication with claims of treating everything from your head to your toe inside that one bottle. That informal market is not being regulated. While I do not claim to challenge the efficacy of anybody's medication, at least if you take something, there's a chance that it will work, right? A lot of medication they work based on the placebo effect. However, we still need to think about how those medications are produced and the effect that they have on people. So a way of formalizing that is some of the things that Dr. Songalem already proposed. There's no systemic quality control. There's an absence of pharmacovigilance, as we've already said, and there are cultural barriers. For example, we know that a lot of effects that we have might be side effects to herbal medicines, but we attribute them to other supernatural effects as well. So there's a need for education about what we perceive as supernatural and what we perceive as things that are as a result of some of the things that we're taking, that we're buying over the counter, that we're buying from the roadside, and that we're buying from the market. There's a lack of evidence base, and some of the presenters today have already talked about a collaborative effort of documenting some of the things that are being used. When we studied pharmacognosy in school, there was a lot of knowledge that was handed down from traditional healers but never recorded. So it was difficult to know how to carry on with some of these efforts that were being used to treat people informally when none of it was being recorded and was being passed down by word of mouth. And sometimes people died with that knowledge. And then obviously we've talked about the falsified products, and then the training gaps in practitioners. Herbal medicines can be used and produced based on word of mouth, but how are we training those that are producing those medicines to collect data on the effects of the medicines that they are sending out? So if you're selling medicines, you should have a system where those that are buying it can tell you how that medicine is affecting you. But there's no evidence that that's happening for some of the traditional herbal medicines that we're using, okay? Across Cameroon and the UK, there are challenges in regulating herbal medicines. Universal underreporting, and the myth that because something is natural and because you harvested it from your garden, it is safe. That is not necessarily so, and it's quite dangerous to think that way, especially when we have knowledge that some of the medicines that we use, that we harvest naturally to use, also interact with some of the medicines that we are already taking formally for our own very conditions that we're trying to treat. In the 90s, in Coral Mountain, mycalamine was isolated that was meant to treat or reverse HIV. And in the early stages of its production, it had very serious neurotoxicity, so it was pulled out of the market. But in the process, a few people lost their lives because the news came back that this plant was helping reverse HIV, and some people were harvesting and just boiling it and drinking it. So there's a need for us to share information about the things that we're finding out around some of the herbal medicines that we're using, okay? And we talked about patients not disclosing the effects of herbal medicines and the globalized supply chains. While Chinese medicines is quite well known, it's well distributed, the ones that we're producing in Cameroon, we have no idea where it's going, how far it's going, and we need efforts in order to support us to follow up on those supply chains. Finally, some of the key takeaways from this presentation are the fact that even though the UK has a very sophisticated system for post-marketing pharmacovigilance, where all healthcare professionals and even patients are aware of how they report the side effects of the medication that they are already using, there are still systemic problems with underreporting. Only 1 in 10 adverse drug reactions in the UK are reported, which is similar in Cameroon. 6.5% of hospital admissions in the UK are attributable to adverse drug reactions and side effects to medication that we're already taking. So while the UK market is quite mature, it is not so different from the Cameroon market in terms of underreporting and in terms of regulating the herbal medicine. So there's an opportunity for Cameroon to be a trailblazer in some of this, because not only do we have the medicinal substances already, these other countries still have to import it from us. We have the opportunity to be trailblazers in not only producing them, producing medicines from it, and putting in place regulatory frameworks that will help keep patients safe, okay? So, in summary, there are 3 priorities that we need to think about. Educating healthcare professionals across Cameroon, pharmacists, doctors, everyone, so that they know that herbal medicine do not equate safe medicines. It just means that you need more education about their side effects, how they're impacting patients, and to put in place some post-marketing surveillance for the medicines that are already in the market. We need more investment in training those professionals, in putting the infrastructure in place in terms of databases, computers, and spaces for people to sit in and do some of the work that needs to be done. And we need in Cameroon, as other speakers,
those who are administering the drugs. I think what we need to take back from what Dr. Nafti has said is we need to challenge those who are teaching the medical students, pharmacy students, and nursing students. You have to teach your students about drug safety, about pharmacovigilance, about how to report adverse drug reactions, because I believe we have a lot of those cases happening and nobody is reporting those things. So I would challenge those at the University of Boya who are championing pharmacology and pharmacy education, so that we can produce a lot of great students who can actually champion this whole thing about pharmacovigilance, because it's a really great thing. If you do great pharmacovigilance, I bet you will have great safety in practice. And also you can write a lot of papers out of it. And also when you start developing this, a lot of the sponsors, I'm talking about the drug companies and other people, will come to you for research and other things, because research in drug doesn't just end after phase 3. There is phase 4, which is the post-marketing surveillance. So a lot of companies put in a lot of money in the phase 4 part of actually monitoring the safety of these products. So I believe that is something that Cameroon can actually capture, that market. So I will challenge the University of Boya lecturers and Dr. Juan, I know you're running some of these projects, to do this. I give this challenge to you, really. But now we will open ourselves to the Q&A sessions. So all the panelists, I welcome you all here. Collins, do we have any questions that can be of interest that we can relate to some of the panelists here?
Sure. We have loads of questions. It has been a very, very interesting session. So I'll just dive straight to the questions.
Correct.
Dr. Wan, this is for you. In Cameroon, we have other institutions that train pharmacy assistants, and you graduate with something like maybe a bachelor's in pharmacy or an HND in pharmacy. So Tarking, who is based in the US, he wants to know what is the place of all those degrees or in pharmacy, not necessarily a PharmD, like maybe HND in pharmacy, someone who studies, what is the place of all that in Cameroon? And also people who have done maybe a master's in pharmacy, can they switch to becoming pharmacists in Cameroon? Is that possible? And lastly, if it is not possible, someone who has studied pharmacology, maybe to a master's level, what opportunities are there for that person in Cameroon? Dr. Wan, you are muted. Let me try to.
Okay, great. Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Excellent. I was expecting this question, and I've hammered on this question for the past 3 years on my medical platform, the One Medical Forum. I have made tons of videos on my YouTube channel, and I've also walked through students from Cameroon to Canada. So this is not new to me. So now your question has I'll call it in 3 parts. Those who have done pharmacology, my lecture in the University of Boya, I did hamper on drug safety. You could see on my notes, my lecture notes. I did explain to them how they can work from home. Don't need to leave Boya to come to Canada to work for drug safety. I have students in Khartoum. Khartoum should be in Sudan. But they are reporting, when I was working for Johnson & Johnson, I was receiving adverse drug reaction from Sudan, from Ghana, from South Africa. So it is doable from Cameroon. I am happy to train them on how to do it, how to report an adverse drug reaction from the comfort of your home in Boya or wherever you are, San Melima, Yaoundé, wherever you are, provided you have access to internet. The network is there, then that's already a good departure. So now you need to go back to Boya, and we train you how to report a case, because there's what we call adverse drug reaction is just a generic term. We need to see how serious they are. If it's suspected unusual adverse drug reaction, all those we call them SUSAs or ADR. So all those things, there are timeline. We call them countdown clock in reporting those things. So I'm happy to train them. That has been my job with my former company, which I don't want to say the name here. It's a big pharma. I don't want to advertise any company here. But that's what I've done for the past 3 years in Canada and the United States. So okay. I'm happy to do that, those who are interested. But you need to have some level in pharmacology, which I will say only those with masters I will allow them, because there are some terms that you have to use in order to report a case. How to write a narrative is very important also, because FDA will not take jargons. They don't listen to such things. There are format they have to follow, otherwise FDA will reject that case, and it becomes a red flag for that company which you are working for. That's why it's needed. Now,
so you are trying to say there are other opportunities that they can still be useful.
They are very useful. I'm telling you that now people work from home. Why not work from home from Boya? Immigration at times are tightening things for you to get visas. But this option for drug safety, you don't really need to get a visa to leave your house. If you can work from home, the key thing is getting that training from an institution. It's not me giving you a lecture and I tell you you qualify. No, you need to take a training. We issue you an attestation from UB. I'm happy to do that. With that attestation now, I walk you through how to get into the farmer, how to report this.
Yeah, I think that question is answered. And is it possible for people to get into the mainstream pharmacy, those who maybe have like a pharmacology degree? Is it possible or not possible?
Okay. The whole thing here is just writing that entrance. You don't just work with your license or degree in pharmacology. You need to write an entrance to get into that school because there are some limitations, like I said. We don't take everybody. So we go through this concours now, or the entrance now, to eliminate those who don't get in, who don't meet that cutoff point. Once you meet the cutoff point, and enter UB or any state university and study pharmacy.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So we have to move on. Please, we may not be able to take all the questions because of time, but we will leave our email address and we will respond to all of these questions we have. So this next one goes to Prof. Prof mentioned that 19 herbal remedies are already licensed. So some people, the audience wants to know if you can maybe name some of these remedies that have been licensed and what body licensed those medications. And just to add, how you mentioned almost how many thousands of studies on herbal remedies, herbal products from Cameroon. How can we access those studies? So we want to know some of the products that were licensed, what body licensed those products, and how can we access studies talking about those herbal products. Prof, you are muted. Please unmute yourself. Yes.
Thank you very much for the question. Okay. I mentioned one of the medications traditional, improved traditional medications which have been made into generic galenic forms. But there are two main ones which I will just mention. As I said, there were 19. There's a laboratory called Lobothera, which produced a product from a plant called Enantial chlorantha. And in that Enantial chlorantha, there's a chemical or an active ingredient they call protoberberine. And that product is sold as Hepasol. When you go the Hepasol, it ends with R. That's a trade name. But you will see Hepasol with L. No, that's not the one. That Hepasol with L is sold in Belgium. That's not the one. So they use this. It's a component from a plant, and they use it to treat hepatitis A, B, C, D, and as well as G. So it's mainly for, and it's sold in all the pharmacy shops in Cameroon if you go there. Then there's another one, which this one was Hepasol was discovered by a pharmacist called Denis Ekoto. He's the one who did that, and he was given the authorization to sell by the Ministry of Health. Then we have the second one, which is coming from Professor Kamsu Kom, who produced an improved traditional medicine, and he sold it as Polar Gastral, and is mainly used to treat ulcer. So that one as well was given an authorization in 2022 by the Minister of Health in order to sell to patients in Cameroon. So those are the two that I can tell you as of now out of the 19. Thank you.
Wow. Yes, Prof. So anyway, for the studies, is it like maybe we can access them on PubMed, or maybe they are just some maybe some particular
We can get them mainly on PubMed. We can get them more in PubMed. With the Ministry of Higher Education tried several times to collect researches from universities in particular, and so they are expected. I'm not so sure, but they collected. They had a unit there which was to collect all researches being done in Cameroon every year. And so if you go to that website, you will be able to see some of the medications or researches which have been done in Cameroon. But most of it are found in PubMed and Google Scholar. You can see them there. Thank you very much,
Prof. Yes. So, Dr. Matilda, this one is for you. You did mention trying to harmonize licensing of medications. So there is this question in the chat box. Can a medication which is licensed, say in Europe or in the US, can people in Africa just automatically start taking it? And can it be vice versa? Let's say medication, Prof mentioned some medications licensed in Cameroon. So we have cases of such diseases here in the UK. Can they just automatically start taking it? Does it still have to pass through some sort of screening?
And that's a great question. Yes. For you to, let me make this very clear. For you to market your drug in any country, you need that country regulatory body's authorization, regardless of whether the drug has been approved elsewhere. So with harmonization, what it does is that it helps the different agencies around. So if we have the same standard for inspections, for example, or we have the same standards for clinical trials. So if a company wants to get their drug marketed in the USA, they have to apply for approval from the US Food and Drug Administration. Now, if that company already had that product licensed in Cameroon or approved in Cameroon or the UK, that the documentation and the data that they use there, if there is a reciprocity or an agreement or collaboration, that information might help in terms of looking at the data that another agency has. So, for example, FDA or Cameroon may look at the inspection of their manufacturing facility that maybe FDA in Ghana looked at, right? The Cameroon government may look at that. So the key thing is that the agency in the country where you're seeking approval may leverage some of the reviews or inspection data or other things, regulatory reviews from another country where it's approved, but each country has to approve that product. So if a product is approved in America, it cannot automatically just be sold in Cameroon. It has to still be approved in Cameroon. And we talked a little bit about the thalidomide, for example. It was already approved in the UK and Germany, but it was never approved in the US. Actually, it was still being studied in the US when they realized that that particular drug was causing all these deformities in babies in vitro, in utero. So no, you don't automatically get approval. You have to seek approval from each agency to market your drug in their country.
Wow. Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you very much. And Dr. Beryl, this is to you. You mentioned pharmacovigilance. is it really practiced in Cameroon? Are there structures in place to monitor drugs in the market, and how effective are those structures in your own as far as you know?
As far as I know, and I did test this out, the DPML website has all the forms to submit adverse drug reaction data, either by patients. You can download the form and then upload it. What I actually then found was that it wasn't being used as effectively as it should, and that was down to perhaps lack of education amongst the pharmacy staff, healthcare staff across hospitals, and the fact that some patients are not necessarily reporting some of these drug reactions to the various bodies. So how can you then record them? But if you look on the DPML website, you'll find that it's actually quite up to date, and you have information as recently as February on that about some of the medication that is about around in the country. So I feel that even though the pharmacovigilance structures in Cameroon are rudimentary and perhaps do not have the resources that they require to maintain them, they are there and they can be further improved.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just going to take this last question because of time. It's coming from Adeline. I think she's one of the students studying pharmacy. Prof, I think you will address this. Adeline is asking that, Adeline, please tell us where you're coming from. You can leave that in the chat box. Many herbalists will not want to share the recipe of their medications because to them it's their business. So saying that this medication, I combine this plan, it's like revealing your secret. So many herbalists want to keep some certain things as a secret. So she's asking that because for us to maybe get to authorize these medications, we need to understand what is being done and go through all this, know what is happening. So how can that be addressed, given that some of these herbalists want to consider their plans and what they do as a secret? So how can that challenge be addressed? And just to add, there is also the issue about the dosage. How much should you take to how long should you take some of these medications? So Prof, what can you say about that?
Thank you very much, Adeline, for the question. Initially, traditional practitioners used to do these things free in the past. When you come, they will treat you free of charge, and then you just give them some material things and they go. Now the world has changed, in which sense we talk about money, and so they have also learned a lesson in which some of these researchers, they come in and get this indigenous knowledge and give them peanuts, and then at the end of the day they disappear and they never see them. They even sign documents to tell them that when we would find something, we'll come back, and in most cases they never come back. And so that is one of the reasons you will see them coming back to say, look, I cannot disclose anything to you, but I know that it works. But that is not the problem. The law that we have, which was passed by the parliament, tells them to do testing. We may not really know what is inside there, but combine it and do the testing. If you give it to your patients and things are working, then we expect that you should be having some scientific data which will prove that it is actually working by doing some of these hematological, biochemical, and other tests in order to confirm. If you are able to have those statistics and everything down, then you are permitted to carry out your treatment. But as I talk to you now, there are many charlatans. There are many charlatans. And that is why they created that association, in order to keep away these charlatans out. For you to be a member, you must have been tested. You don't just come in and start and say I'm a traditionalist. And they also make sure that the ethics is not violated, because sometimes the claims they make is so alarming that we cannot accept what they are talking about. They have to warn them. So the disclosing the active ingredient is somehow a bit difficult for them, but they fail to know that some of these things are highly documented scientifically, and so one can easily walk there and get those plans and do the testing without having any passing through them. Thank you. Thank you.
Is just abundant, and it's been a really, really great session. And just to round things up, the key points, take away from Dr. Ajua is there's a lot in the pharmacy world, in the pharmacology world, and Dr. Ajua is there. He is a lecturer, he is a scientist, he is a pharmacist. He is ready to guide all the young people in the different direction, different aspects, those who are into pharmacology, those who are into pharmacy, those who are aspiring, those who want to branch into so many different things. He has given us a possibility of things that people could do with a pharmacy degree and a pharmacology degree and even nursing degree. So if you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to get in touch with Dr. Juan, and he also has a platform where he's educating young people and also Cameroonians and people from all over the world about what he's doing. And then what we take away from Prof is that Prof has made us understand that herbal medicinal products are something that we have and it will stay in Cameroon. The essence is that it needs to be in a formal space. It needs to be formalized. It needs to be standardized. And that is what Prof is working day and night to help the scientists, to help the herbalists, to help the Cameroonian government, so that these products can be standardized, they can have an approval, and they can be sold in the market so that it saves lives. And then we go to Dr. Matilda Fienke, and then it's the world of regulatory affairs, the world of clinical trials, the world beyond what many people don't know. Dr. Matilda has opened us into this space of clinical trials, regulatory affairs, quality assurance, which a lot of people who are actually into pharmacology, quality assurance is another space where it is broad. The manufacturing of drug manufacturing, the manufacturing of, there's a lot in that space. There's a lot in regulatory affairs, in clinical trials. So explore those things, explore them. And you have all these panelists here. If you need additional support, you can get to them and they will support you. And then going over to Dr. Beryl Nafti, you have opened this really kind of worms in Africa where there is pharmacovigilance on paper, but there is no pharmacovigilance at all. And it's something that we need to challenge the authorities, we challenge the universities that are training our young people, we challenge the hospitals that these young people are working for, we challenge ourselves as practitioners. Are we actively doing any pharmacovigilance reporting? Are we just taking medications, not looking at them to see if all those signs that Dr. Beryl was talking about, are we looking at those things to see if it's a conditional approval that needs monitoring? Is this drug, does it need to be monitored, and how often? And do we even know how to report things? So I say that we have a lot to take away today. It's been a really, really good webinar. I hope the students have learned a lot. And I hope that we're coming out of this place knowing that safety is important, efficacy is important, quality is important, and sharing of knowledge. Science is not a one-man thing or a one-woman thing. It encompasses everybody. It is multidisciplinary when you have to approve a drug. And we all need to come together. We have a lot of Cameroonians in the diaspora and in Cameroon who have great minds in science and in other things. We have to come together and make things happen. I believe that there are great things that will come out of Cameroon. I believe so much in Cameroon. And I hope that in the near future, we all could come together, make things happen, and then turn Cameroon into that shining light that every pharmaceutical company wants to come to. They come in, they bring jobs, they bring money, they bring everything, and we grow. So we need to put things in place, but nobody will come into a country if there are no laws in place and if they do not have the people that can do the work. So I am asking those who are in the panel and those who are in the audience right now working for the Cameroonian government, we need you to help us with this fight. We need the educators. We need those who are in the clinical fields. We need all the people in the diaspora to come together and make this happen. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you all. I hope you have a lovely, lovely week ahead, and let's keep safety. Safety is very important, and we should keep learning and growing, and I hope that we will meet again very soon. Thank you so much, and have a lovely evening. Bye.
MoneyFX, sending money home just got faster. Enjoy top exchange rates, low fees, and transfers that land in under 10 minutes. Whether it's school fees in Cameroon, hospital bills in Nigeria, or family support in Ghana, MoneyFX makes every transfer count. MoneyFX, fast money transfer when it matters most.
In today's world, money is not just about access. It's about timing.
When money arrives late, opportunities disappear. Deals fall through. Support comes too slow.
But some people are calm because they funded their key bank account early. Imagine this, you fund ahead of time.
You hold securely and you release instantly, exactly when it matters.
That's not just banking. That's control. And that's what KeyBank is built for.
A system where timing is power and control is the new currency.
So share that power. Invite people in your circle to use smarter money tools. Refer 5 people. Give them access to real financial control and stand a chance to win big.
The future of finance is coming.
It's already here. #Power of 5. KeyBank, your money, your control.